Hey everybody, today we're going to be doing another auto-sampled instrument, this time the Kawai SX-240. This is a great analog, well, it's a digitally controlled analog synthesizer, but it's all analog on the internal parts. And this is one of the original MIDI capable instruments. It wasn't the very first, which I think is reserved for one of the Prophet instruments, but this was right there, right out of the gate afterwards. It has a really basic MIDI implementation. Sounds great. It's a 8-voice programmable polyphonic synthesizer, but it can do tons of stuff. You have dual layers and multiple oscillators. You can get some really thick sounds from it. Super fun to program. Not as easy as some that had all kinds of knobs and things. It really just has one incremental data knob and a little parameter arrows that you have to click through. But it's still really fun to program. It's a pain to make wide changes. So it's a preset instrument. You can do lots with presets. And it was one of the early preset instruments. But that being said, because of that, most of the time, if you want to use a sound from here, it really does make sense to sample it. So we're going to sample it, just one patch today. And of course, this patch will be made available for you for free so you can download it and use it. So you can have a little taste of the SX-240, which I'm imagining many of you have never even heard of. But I think that it's one of those instruments that it'd be fun to have access to. So I've got my instrument track already. Let's put on our external instrument, instrument effect plugin. And we're going to do mono. This instrument does have a couple stereo effects with it, an ensemble effect, and I'm pretty sure, I don't know if the brass does stereo stuff or not. But with those, we're not using them in this patch, so it doesn't matter. So we're just going to do a mono instrument for this. Saves on resources and everything. Cuts down on the noise. For the MIDI destination, we're going to use our MIO port 4. And we're going to do input 2 on our Steinberg interface. My microphone is port 1 for now. That's another reason why we're doing mono instead of stereo in this case, because I want to talk to you while we're doing it. So we have that. Let me just pull open typing keyboard. So that's the actual sound of the SX-240 in real time, live input that you're hearing. I'm doing it this way instead of typing on the keyboard, because if I do it on the keyboard, there's a chance, I know right now it's not because I've already tested it, but if you weren't testing it carefully, there's a chance that you would just have local control and not be actual sending data from Logic to it, and then you'd have to set it up, fix it later. So I'm just going to troubleshoot it in advance. Next, I'm going to do the AutoSampler, which is just mono because of the fact that the external instrument is just mono. So you can hear how it's repeating. That's a limitation of the early MIDI implementation. That's really the lowest note we got. So let's go one note higher. That's the highest note that the MIDI implementation of this keyboard will let us get. Now, I want to do every semitone just because there's something about character of this synth. It's going to be re-triggering its oscillators every single time, so it's fine. We don't need 10 seconds. We just need 2 seconds on here. Let's just type that in. Almost really by 1 second, it's fully developed. Now we could slow that down. I could go into the synth here, and let's see, let's do a little slower attack. which we don't necessarily need to do, but we could also do the envelope. So that it builds a little slower over time too. I like that. We don't have any additional velocity layers. That's another nice thing about auto sampling old synths like this. We didn't have velocity control on these actual instruments themselves, so it didn't really matter. Let's do the search, and we can change that later if we want. Let's see if there's anything else here we need. I think that's everything. So let's sample it now. It's going to tell us how long it'll take, but 2 seconds. It's not going to be all that long for the whole instrument. So let's get it started. And this one here, we're going to call this the SX-240 high patch. That's what it's called, HI, high. Let's do that like that. Yeah, there we go. And so it's going to go through all the notes for this instrument. You're going to see it's going to fly through this because there's not a lot to it. And I'm guessing we could have done 1 second or 1.5 seconds, but it doesn't hurt. I do want to look after this is done at using some of the sampler instrument timing things, because I believe we can set the overall project tempo and other things based on the timing of the sample instrument. So this has a very specific tempo happening here based on the LFO setting, which is controlling the volume up and down. Okay, so I'm going to pause for a second and then we'll come back when this is all done. Okay, it just ended and it took maybe a couple minutes. Not very long. Now we have this instrument all ready to go. Let's actually open it up. Let's not just get rid of this track or anything. Let's open up the sampler. And inside here, it's right here, SX-240. Okay, so it's loaded. Didn't take more than just a fraction of a second. Let's turn off these other things here. Yeah, that wasn't the best. I mean, you can hear some of those loop points. Man, I don't want to hear any of my loop points in there. So let's do a quick change of those. Let's do some loop, and let's auto loop. Still a few that are having little clicks and pops. So let's do looping and optimize loop crossfades. A few of these we might just have to do on our own. And actually go through and adjust them manually. Still a little bit there, but it's interesting hearing some of these choices it makes. I think that one's already like 15 times better. It's just interesting. As I was saying, I think sometimes they prefer to do that in the middle of a file instead of near the null point, but that one could come over just a hair. Man, still not great. Let's do that one. And it started, you can hear that definitely looping. Okay, so I just went through and adjusted the fades on these. I was going through and doing them one by one to customize, and it was just more of a random. They just need to be longer fades. So in the end, I went in here, selected them all, and went to the crossfade area and just moved them all simultaneously when they're selected. And that worked like a charm. So I was able to get them all done really easily. And it was super easy to get that done. Other than that, I think the instrument, as simple as it is ready to go. I do think that one thing I found which was interesting is that I thought I might go through and use the retune feature, but it analyzed this simple waveform and like changed the whole speed of everything, which is kind of cool, but not the original instrument. So I think we're pretty ready to go with this. So we could mess around with some of the speed on these if we wanted to. It is interesting when I select the entire thing that it's not exactly doing all of them. So you'd have to do a lot of these individually if you wanted to do that. So that's kind of interesting that you can select them all, make a choice, and it's not changing it, but that's okay. Now, the one other thing we could do let's change this one. Just to fill out the frequency range, even though the instrument wasn't actually doing that. So now we have the entire range. It's just doing a pitch shifting for the bottom part. So for this one, we might actually want to have it do the time. But let's have it go one speed, not half. So it's keeping the timing the same. And so it doesn't actually speed it up or slow it down for the extremes, even though it has some artifacts. Okay, so a little bit of rambling there, but I hope this is a little bit useful for some of you thinking about doing some more sampling in here. That there's a lot to this and a lot of things to kind of think about and test out and experiment with. It's not always going to be easily solved by the AutoSampler, even though I didn't set it to loop with fades, which I should have done, or use the Penrose machine. I just did it because I thought it was going to be able to find good spots because it's a repetitious waveform, but it had a hard time with it. And that's because of the LFO, the filter building in, and then the waveforms inside all of that. So I had to actually use some crossfades to get it to sound a little bit more natural. Okay, so what you now have available is this instrument. You're going to be able to use this and the patch that I played right here. So this is one of the SX-240 sounds. It's not a default patch. It's one that I just created just for this specific example here. So use it however you want. There is a link in the description. So get that. When you download the file, let me show you where to put it because I don't know if everyone knows that. But you go to your music folder, audio music apps. We're going to go to our sample instruments. This is where you're going to put the .exs file. So it comes with essentially two parts. One of them is this file, and then there's a folder of all the sampled parts right here, and the folder with the name that matches the sampled instrument goes in the samples folder. If you auto-sample something, this is where that goes. So I'm just going to pull this folder. This is all the files that we made today. So you'll get this folder, SX-240 high, and you'll get this EXS file. Don't put them in the auto-sampled folder, though. Put them directly out here in the sampled instruments. And that way, you'll be able to just load it up inside this. It'll show up down here, not in the auto-sampled folder, but it'll show up right where this Moog Opus 1 is. And you'll be able to load it in that instrument. Okay, so that's how you're going to actually install the files that you're getting for free, this one instrument. Okay, all said and done. Hope you learned something from this. I hope you found this useful. And we're going to be doing one instrument every week in addition to whatever other tutorials we put up on the channel. So I had a little poll that we put up online, and I got some good ideas for what everybody's interested in. We're going to start working on those. But today and once a week, we'll be doing just an auto sample thing that you get for free. So enjoy, and I hope you're having a great week. I hope you're being safe, responsible, and I hope you're standing up for the things you believe in. Talk to you later.